Thank you, Dylan. Wow, after hearing that very enthusiastic welcome, it is obvious to me that you people are confused. I am not one of the developers of a coronavirus vaccine. I am just Mocs. That's M-O-C-S, short for Man of Constant Sunshine. My catchphrase is, say what? When I cue you by holding out the mic, say what? Please, you're ahead of the game. Please respond with, say what? I'm a pretty mellow fellow. As long as I'm getting adequate amounts of sex, beer, and golf, life is good. I do, however, have two things that need to be stroked frequently. One is my ego, the other, my penis. You can stroke my ego by laughing loudly and often. If you do, I promise I will not stroke my penis on stage this evening. My wife Terry and I have been blessed with 3 wonderful children. When our oldest Ryan was an infant, he checked off all of the early childhood development boxes right on schedule, with one exception. At his 18-month checkup, he still did not talk. Our pediatrician said, "Don't worry, everything's normal, Ryan will start talking soon." At 28 months, 2 very concerned parents took Ryan to see a specialist who put him through a series of tests. Smile for me, Ryan. Touch your nose, clap your hands, point to the cow in the picture, complete this puzzle, walk to the chalkboard, grab some chalk and draw a circle. All of which he did very quickly with a mischievous smile. Ryan is what we call a slow talker, which means he possesses average or above average social, thinking, and motor skills, but for some unknown reason, he chooses not to talk. But he will start talking someday, and when he does, he will probably talk nonstop to the point where you'll once again be wishing you had some quiet in your home. Then she added, "It is very important that you read to Ryan for at least 1 hour every day, and one day he may surprise you by reading along." Terry was working 65 hours a week and studying for the CPA exam at that time, so I did the bulk of the reading. Ryan, like most kids, had a favorite book. His was Best Mother Goose Ever. After reading the same nursery rhymes over and over and over again for the 575th time, I started to change some of the words to preserve my sanity. For example, piping hot, smoking hot, what I've got, you have not, became piping hot, smoking pot. What I have, you have not. Leg over leg, the dog walked to Dover. When he came to a stile, he leaped over. Became leg over leg, the dog walked to Dover. When he came to a stile, he pissed on it. When Terry heard me going off script, she warned, "You are going to regret that someday when Ryan starts to repeat you." I shrugged it off, thinking, this kid is never going to talk. We need to learn sign language. In addition to Mother Goose, I read a dozen children's books over and over and over again. When my parents came to celebrate his 3rd birthday, Ryan was still not talking. Immediately upon their arrival, my mother asked, "Ryan, can Grandma read you a book?" He ran to his bedroom, came back with 3 books, and crawled up on her lap. "This book looks like lots of fun. It's another Wacky Wednesday by Dr. Seuss." No, Grandma, it's another Whack Off Wednesday." Tears quickly filled my eyes, either from the joy of hearing my son speak or from the pain in my shin where Terry had kicked me. Joy and pain turned quickly to fear when I saw the other books. Up next was Horton, Here's a Whore. Followed by Clifford the Big Red Dog has a big red dick. With my parents staring at me, I felt like Lucy must have when Desi used to say, "You've got lots of splaining to do." Everybody knows that if you have sex in the bathroom of an airplane, in the air with a partner, because solo sex does not count, that you will join the Mile High Club. But do you know which club you join when you have sex in a porta potty?
Say what?
Neither do I. But I am fairly certain that club gained 2 new members right here in Fargo, North Dakota on October 17th, 2022, during tailgating prior to the NDSU-SDSU football game. At noon, I saw a young man wearing a bison sweatshirt and a young lady dressed in jackrabbit garb enter a porta potty. At 12:27, they emerged, giving a thumbs up to their friends gathered outside.
Say what?
Now, I have had hundreds, quite possibly thousands of sexual fantasies in my lifetime. Not even once has a porta potty been involved. I was a nerd in high school, very naive and quite awkward around girls.
Say what?
I tried to compensate by hanging with my friend Richard, who was handsome, athletic, and very self-confident, hoping some of what he had would rub off on me. Unfortunately, it never did. Typing was a required class when we were sophomores. We practiced every day for 7 months. Then, on Fridays in the spring, we started taking time speed tests to determine our final grades. One Friday in April, I slid into class right under the final bell and grabbed the last remaining desk in the front row. As I sat down, I noticed that Richard and Kathy occupied the 2 desks in the very back of the room. Our teacher, Wild Bill Cluse, grabbed a newspaper, which he thought cleverly concealed his Playboy magazine, put his feet up on his desk, set a timer for 30 minutes, yelled "Ready, set, type," and we typed furiously for a racket-filled half hour. After class, I waited in the hallway to tell Richard excitedly and Nerdinese, "I typed 58 words a minute today, Rich. How'd you do?" 4, he replied.
Say what?
We've been practicing for 7 months and you can only type 4 words a minute? Not bad, since I was just using one hand and it was my left hand to boot.
Say what?
Well, what's wrong with your right hand? Nothing. I was helping Kathy with her test and she typed 102.
Say what?
How do you help someone with a typing test? I asked. Richard raised his right hand, extended the middle finger, and slid it slowly across my upper lip. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was as close as I ever got to having sex in high school. On a Friday afternoon in September 14 years ago, I was drinking beer with a half dozen guys my age after playing around the golf when Curtis abruptly announced, "I have prostate cancer."
Say what?
Followed with, Are you guys all getting annual physicals like you were supposed to? Well, that forced me to admit that my last physical was in 1969 when I went to work for the Great Northern Railroad. My roadmaster, Mr. Bromagin, sent me to see the company physician, 82-year-old Dr. Larson, whose office was in his home at 1326 Beltrami Avenue, Bemidji, Minnesota. Doc met me at his front door, led me through his living room to his bedroom, which doubled as an exam room. How are you feeling, Gary? I feel good, Doc. Then he walked out into the hallway and said, Chicago.
Say what?
Walked back into the bedroom. What did I say? Chicago. Well, your hearing's good and you look good. He grabbed a piece of letterhead and scribbled, Gary Patterson is good to work. I asked my golfing buddies what a physical in 2009 might entail. Your doctor will look into your eyes, ears, nose, and throat, listen to your heart and lungs. Then he will take his finger, shove it up your ass, and palpate your prostate gland.
Say what?
Everybody said that hurts like hell. I hate that. Everyone except David Miller, who said, doesn't hurt. I don't hate it. David, aside from the obvious, that being that you possess more gay genes than the rest of us combined, what would be your secret?
Female doctor. Slender fingers.
That made perfect sense to me. So when I got home, I grabbed the yellow pages, scrolled through family physicians. Near the end of the list was a picture of a young Asian female standing at her desk with her hands resting on a huge medical book. Dr. Margaret Wu had very slender fingers. On Monday, I summoned the courage to call. Good morning, Dr. Wu's office. Valerie speaking. How may I help you? My name is Gary Patterson. I am 58 years old. My wife and friends insist that I have a physical since I have not seen a doctor in over 40 years.
What?
Oh, I'm very, very sorry, Gary. That was very unprofessional of me. But I've never heard anybody say that before. We can help you. Dr. Wu just had a cancellation, Wednesday, 10:30 a.m. When I arrived at Dr. Wu's office, two young mothers were sitting in the waiting room with an elementary-age boy and girl. I checked in with Val, who said, I have an exam room open, follow me. Well, what about the people waiting? You have an appointment, they are walk-ins. In the exam room, Val said, take off all of your clothes, put on that gown, take a seat on the exam table. Dr. Wu will be in shortly. A few minutes later, the door opened. Good morning, Gary. I am Dr. Margaret Wu. You shall call me Peggy. I will call you Mr. P. Okay. The exam went pretty much as expected until Peggy said, step off the table and stand facing me. Then she slipped on latex gloves, reached under my gown, and started to caress my testicles.
Say what?
I am feeling for unusual lumps or bumps, Mr. P. You should self-exam monthly. We got no problems down there, Peggy. I check on my boys every single day. The feeling of latex was quite sensual. I was starting to become aroused. Peggy killed that by saying, turn around, bend over, resting your forearms on the exam table. I will now conduct rectal exam by inserting my finger into your anus. This may cause some discomfort. That was a fucking lie! Some discomfort would have been by placing my ball sack on her desk and slamming it with that medical box. Her finger up my ass was excruciatingly painful. Ow! 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 David Miller, you are a lying bastard. After Peggy extracted her finger, she said, "You get dressed now. I'll be back shortly to discuss your exam." As I was getting dressed, I filled my pockets with latex gloves. Christmas presents for my wife. When Peggy returned, she said, "You are in good health, Mr. P. Come back in 1 year. Do you have any questions?" "No." "I have a question for you, Mr. P. What you mean, David Miller, you are a lying bastard?" When I shared the slender finger theory, Peggy laughed hysterically. "That's very funny, Mr. P. You should be a comedian." When I stopped at Val's desk to schedule my next appointment, she said, "Can I call you the great healer, Gary?"
Say what?
"Why? Remember the kids in the waiting room? When you screamed, they said simultaneously, 'Mother, I am feeling much better. I want to go back to school.'" Since Oral Roberts has already claimed the healer as his moniker, I will call you the great healer. We'll see you next September, Gary. Since COVID screwed up scheduling, my most recent appointment was last week. Everything was going along just fine until Peggy said, "Your prostate felt larger today than in years past, Mr. P. Are you experiencing any of these symptoms? Difficulty maintaining a steady stream of urine when you pee? Unable to completely empty your bladder when you pee? The need to pee urgently?" Well, sometimes all of the above, but if I sit down to pee, everything works just fine. That is not a good solution to your problem, Mr. P. We can help you. Then she reached into her desk, pulled out a hollow test plastic tube about this big, handed me a pamphlet titled TUIP, Transurethral Incision of the Prostate, complete with diagrams and a description of the procedure. After injecting the penis 4 times with anesthesia, using a 36 gauge, 4 1/2 inch hypodermic needle, it gets worse. Then a tube will be inserted into the penis through the urethra. It gets worse. Then a scalpel is slid through that tube and a portion of the prostate is surgically removed. After the debris is vacuumed out through that tube, it gets worse. Then a high voltage electric wire is slid through that tube and the incision will be cauterized. It gets even fucking worse. During the 3-month recovery period, the patient will be incontinent and he will need to wear adult diapers.
Say what?
What do you think, Mr. P? Should I schedule an appointment with urologist? What do I think, Peggy? I think you have lost your fucking mind. You have seen my penis. This will not fit in there. Nobody's going to prick by prick shove a tube through my penis, causing me to wear diapers. Actually, I find sitting down to pee quite relaxing. Enjoy the holidays, Peggy. I'll see you next year. My time is up. I need to pee urgently. I am Gary Mocs Patterson. Thanks for listening, and thank you for stroking my ego.